Nothing new under the sun. What people gain and profit from all the toil under the sun? Chapter 1, verse 3. He raises the question. Prologue opens the book of Kohelet. It raises a question which is very much in line with the wisdom. What profit a man gets out of the toil? Now the word profit or gain in Hebrew is ethron. The word ethron occurs 18 times in the book of Kohelet. The book starts with the question, that is, what does people profit under the sun? The main preoccupation of the kings, governors, those who ruled Judah is to acquire money. As I told you, the historical context of the book of Ecclesiastes is when the people returned from Babylonian exile under the Persian rule. Later, Persians were occupied by, book is written in Hellenistic period, we said, right? During the time, after the Alexander the Great, his kingdom is divided between two of his generals, Seleucid and Ptolemy. Sometime, whole world that time, during that time, whatever the land was occupied by Emperor Alexander the Great, is divided equally between two of his generals, and for certain period of time the land Palestine was under the rule of Ptolemies, who are the southern part, occupying all the Egypt and all these areas up to Syria. This was part of Ptolemies, and from Syria and above was all ruled by Seleucids, and later they both fought, and Ptolemies lost and Seleucids won, and Seleucids conquered or confiscated this land, and they imposed a lot of taxes. During this time, even in our history we have studied this Greek culture, Hellenistic time, Greek culture, they have propagated the Greek culture everywhere, whichever country they have gone. Even in India they have come to, Greeks have come to, even into India. And during this Kashmir and all this area, if you read the history, there is a lot of Greek culture, Greek art, Greek architecture was promoted wherever they have gone. And as a result, in Palestine, what was happening? Lot of buildings, a lot of architecture was going on. Lot of money was extracted from the people. A lot of buildings. And now, book of Kohelet addresses this system where people were extracted lot of money, people were oppressed, people were made poor by collecting a lot of taxes, and they are making a lot of buildings. And this project was condemned by book of Kohelet, and he keep these things, and he says all this endeavor of the kings, the rulers, is vanity, useless, because they die, and all these things, they do not remain permanently. Therefore all their endeavor is vanity of vanity, he says. So therefore, when he says, Kohelet, when he says, what profit, what gain these rulers will have by oppressing and collecting the taxes and building these things, the poor man dies, the oppressed man will die, and the ruler also will die. So what is the gain? What is the profit for him? There is no profit. That's what he concludes. So keep these things, the historical incident, in mind, then we will proceed. During the time, the kings brought a lot of business. because building and all these things, a lot of business happens, no? Nowadays, for Ayodhya building Ram temple, a lot of money is collected, a lot of business is going on there. Okay? Building such a big building or big temple, it's not one day, 2 day, for years it's going on, and expected next year to open, and lot of, so these things are happening. So a lot of business is going on. So hectic commercial life, lot of productivity that promoted philosophy and culture and all these things they were promoting. So from this background, Kohelet takes the word ithron, profit, and criticizes the governors. He is criticizing the governors. Why? Because they are oppressing the poor. They are laying heavy taxes on the poor. People are becoming poorer and the temples are growing, or the culture is growing, or the buildings are growing. Now what is the use of having big mansions, buildings and all that, and where there are no people to live in? Huh? So he is questioning, is right? What profit if you have a big house and you have not even hardly 2 people to live there? And you make people very poor, and for them you build nice museums and all that. They have no money to go and watch that museums and all. Pay at least that fare, no? Yeah, for the parks and all that we have to pay fare, no? To go and see and inside. So like that. His question. He takes the optimistic idea of Greeks. This culture, business, he says, all the toil is vain. Greeks are optimistic. They want to present themselves, their culture, superior, their philosophy, everything. But they all die. So, therefore, he says, all toil, all the hard work, after the death of a king, all his hard work is gone. No more, no more. Therefore, all his toil under the sun is waste, he says. In the book, Kohelet uses his favorite term, vanity under the sun. The word under the sun is found 29 times. Now let's see the meaning of the word or the phrase under the sun. The meaning of the word the meaning of the phrase under the sun. It is an assessment of the place of a man in the world that is beyond his control. What is the meaning of the term under the sun? It is an assessment of the place of man in the world. What is the place of man in the world? He cannot understand the things. He cannot understand the world. Therefore, it is beyond him. The world is beyond him. It also means, the term under the phrase, it also means human life is limited. All will die. This is the meaning of the term under the sun. The term under the sun would mean the place of man in the world which is beyond his control. It also means human life is limited and all will die. The passing nature of human life here on earth. The word designates, the phrase under the sun designates man who is in this world. Man who is in this world, and his situation. What is his situation? The world is beyond his control. The expression under the sun also would mean human limitedness. Human limitedness. In chapter 1, verse 8, part A, which is the center of the poem, Kohelet would say, all things are wearisome. It would mean human being is unable to understand and express in the world. Human being is unable to understand the world. Chapter 1, verse 8, part B. Part B, let us see. Chapter 1, verse. All things are wearisome, part A, part B. The eye is not satisfied with the seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. So by this, what he means? He says, he is condemning the conventional wisdom. By that statement, by seeing, our eyes are not satisfied. By hearing, our ears are not satisfied. It would mean he is condemning the conventional wisdom. Why is condemning the conventional wisdom? Because conventional wisdom speaks of admiration for human doings and works. Conventional wisdom, that is, you do good things, exhorting, doing good things. It would admire human doing and works. But Kohelet, man is unable to place himself as a significant subject. That is, man is incapable of understanding. Man is not able to see and hear everything. Conventional wisdom speaks about man's hearing and seeing and doing. But Kohelet says, what we see is not all that we see. What we hear is not all that we hear. What can we know is not all that we can know. Therefore, he criticizes conventional wisdom. In classical wisdom, observation is important. Book of Proverbs would say, observe, see the things, you will attain wisdom. But Kohelet says, man is not able to observe anything because everything is same and everything is repetition. What do you observe? Sun rises and sun goes. Is there anything to observe? Everything is happening. If at all you want to observe beyond that, what you can understand is your understanding is limited, therefore your observation is limited. So that's why he says, submit. Instead of doing so many things, working and earning fame and all these things, be satisfied with what you have. Be satisfied with what you have. So please don't apply this kind of thinking into the studies here. So I am satisfied with the class lectures. Therefore, I won't do anything more than that. No. So that's not. He, the Kohelet, criticizes classical wisdom through means of observation. Chapter 1, verse 8. Here he says, human activities are insignificant. That is, all things are wearisome. Finally, he says, we act as a part of creation. We act as a part of creation, but we cannot create. He says we cannot create. We can only act as a part of creation. Now we understand why all these things he is speaking. What is the background in his mind? The kings and the emperors of the time, they were exacting charges and making people poor, and doing lot of endeavor, great things. And he says, the poor man is dying, the rich man is dying. The wise man who spends a lot of time and acquires a lot of knowledge and wisdom, he also dies. A man simpleton who is working in the field, he also dies. Therefore, he says, we can only act as a part of creation. We cannot create. Therefore, all this endeavor, human endeavor, is wearisome. It's a wearisome. I don't say waste of time. So, with that, we have completed almost the topic under the sun. The main thrust of the book of Kohelet. He speaks from the background of Hellenistic or Greek culture and all that, collecting taxes and all that. That is keep in mind. Now we are coming to the seventh point, challenging the crisis of wisdom. Challenging the crisis of wisdom. Chapter 12, verse 9 to 14. We shall read a few lines from there and we shall give some listen. Yeah. 12, 9 to 14. Besides being wise, the teacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying, and arranging many proverbs. The teacher sought to find pleasing words, and he wrote words of truth plainly. Up to 14 will go. The sayings of the wise are like gourds and like nails, firmly fixed, are collected sayings that are given by one shepherd. Of anything beyond these, my child, beware of making many books. There is no end, and much study is wearisome of the flesh. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear of the Lord and keep His commandments, for that is the whole duty of everyone. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. So, after reading the text, we come back to what are the ways the author of the Kohelet criticizes the traditional wisdom. First one, he criticizes the fundamentals that are given based on human observation. He criticizes those who are confident of solving the problems. From his experience, he finds that all is vanity. So, book of Proverbs or wise people, what they are trying to do is, by their use of observation, they are trying to solve the problems. And now, the author of the Kohelet, he also makes an observation. From his experience, he finds we cannot solve the problems. Can anyone solve my problems? Burden of standing here and teaching? Can any of you? Or can I solve some of your burdens? No. Therefore, he criticizes. Pardon? Yeah. He criticizes those who, through their observation, think that they can solve the problems of the people. Secondly, he says by experience, one can't understand why things are the way they are. That is, the purpose of things are hidden from human. He says, by experience one cannot understand the way things are, the way they are, because the purpose of things are hidden from the man. Chapter 3, verse 11. What God has made is hidden from man. What God has made is hidden from man. Man cannot know all things from God. Chapter 3, verse 11. Next one. By using the forms of conventional wisdom, he criticizes them. Classical wisdom or conventional wisdom highlights work and its positive side, saying lack of work brings poverty. But Kohelet says work brings suffering. Much wisdom, much work. Much work, much suffering. Now see, from his mind he should be able to understand why he says classical wisdom appreciates work, hard work. Proverbs, we said, the lazy man tosses his bed on his bed. Therefore, on the days he has nothing to eat. Because of his laziness, he is not working. He starves and dies. Whereas the one who works hard, he keeps something. He preserves something. Therefore, he lives. That is the conventional wisdom. But the book of Kohelet, he says, whereas classical wisdom highlights the work and its positive nature, positive side, which brings a lot of prosperity, he sees we are working very hard. But what is happening? These foreign rulers are coming and laying taxes, heavy taxes, and taking all that we have. So all our much work, much toil is a waste. Now you should understand from which background he is speaking. Likewise, the kings, the rulers, the Ptolemies, they are laying heavy burdens, heavy taxes on us. But they also would die. They would not take all these things. Therefore, he is critical about the positive side of the work that brings much toil. Next, classical wisdom, book of the author of Kohelet says, classical wisdom says, right time. Right time. But Kohelet says there is a time for everything. Everything is fixed, unlike classical wisdom, who say doing things at right moment. He criticizes classical wisdom, saying everything is fixed. There is no right time. There is no right time. Everything is fixed. Sun rising is fixed. Your sleeping is fixed. There is no right time. Morning you have to get up. It is fixed. Finally, book of Koheleth does not hold principle of causality. Book of Koheleth does not hold principle of causality. Cause and effect. Good brings, what is that? Hard work brings prosperity. Laziness brings death or toil or starvation. This is a cause and effect. Now, if you work hard, you will succeed. If you do not work hard, you will suffer. Cause and effect. Book of Koheleth criticizes. There is no cause and effect always working. Because we said experience is based on each other. Did we say in the first book? Book of Proverbs we said, no? Wisdom is based on the experience of each other. We said right. Likewise, here the author of the book of the Koheleth, he would say, there is no cause and effect. In day-to-day experience, it is not the same. And finally he says, wisdom is beyond the reach of human beings. Wisdom is beyond the reach of human beings. We try to attain wisdom, but we think we have attained, but true wisdom is not possible to us, not attainable. From there, after having completed book of Koheleth criticizing the classical wisdom, we will enter point 8. Would not God be more than a fate? Would not God be more than a fate? So, his idea about God and fate, human fate, his image of God, very important. The word Elohim, God, is used 40 times in the book of Koheleth. 12 chapters, but 40 times he uses the word God, Elohim. Though he appears as a skeptic, but he is still rooted in the faith of Israel. Though he appears outwardly as a skeptic because of the circumstances, situation where he belonged, but he is still rooted in the faith of God of Israel. So, his image of God, according to Koheleth, the image of God. God is a giver of life. God is a giver of time. He gives everything. He sentences, he secures everything. And finally he says, though God gives all these things, the above said, life, time, gift, okay, he secures and he provides everything, man cannot understand. 11 times in the book of Koheleth, he uses the word God gives. God gives. So whatever we are getting, he says, we are receiving from the hand of God. But we don't understand why he gives and all these things. Okay, whatever he gives, why he gives, that wisdom is missing from us. He also says, if you receive everything from God, God has no policy. Why he gives? For whom? Why for someone he gives a lot of riches? Why someone becoming famous? Why someone becoming poor? We do not know. Because God's policies we do not understand. Chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. Chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavily upon the humankind. Those to whom God gives wealth, possessions and honor, so that they lack nothing of all that they desire. Yet God does not enable them to enjoy these things, but a stranger enjoys them. You see, God gives riches to some. These people, they do not enjoy. Someone else enjoys their riches. Sometimes we see these kind of observations also, right? Yeah. So, we don't understand whatever God gives. Whenever God has done, whatever God has done, it is incomprehensible from us. 11 verse 5. We can't understand what God does. Whatever God does can be a fate. Semikra, fate. First time we are seeing fate. Semikra or mikra. Hebrew word mikra. Fate. It appears 7 times in the book. So which means the author of the book of Kohelet is saying nobody can escape what God gives, especially the fate of death. Fate of death, either you are wise or fool, either you are rich or great, either you are human being or animal, all have to die. So no one can escape the fate of death. Chapter 2, 14 and 15. The word mikra, fate, it is translated as lot. So death is the lot of us all. And why we die? Why wise die? Why fool also would die? We do not know, but it is our lot. The fate refers to happenings which can't have explanation. Fate, please write. Fate refers to happenings which can't have explanation. Fate refers to happenings which can't have explanation. Man or animal, wise or fool, all have the same fate. Or same fate marks history. All have got which can't have explanation. Which can't have explanation. Kohelet in this sense appears as a philosopher. According to him, God is distinct and transcendent. According to Kohelet, God is distinct and is transcendent. Therefore, before this transcendent God, we should stand in fear. According to Kohelet, fear is not positive like classical wisdom. According to him, fear is in sense of distancing oneself. Fear of God is distancing oneself, which means when you don't understand, you avoid, you keep silence. This is the attitude of book of Kohelet presents before at the notion of incomprehensible. God is incomprehensible, world is incomprehensible, wisdom is incomprehensible to us, our very life is incomprehensible. Why things are happening in our life, we do not know. At this point, what should have? We should have fear of God. Who says? Kohelet. Like book of Proverbs, fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All should have fear of God. Now, according to Kohelet, fear of God is not positive but negative. What he says? Fear of God is nothing but distancing yourself, keeping silent, avoiding the quest to know. In short, concerning God, Kohelet says, God, the notion of God escapes our understanding. Therefore, so finally he says, because you don't understand God, don't make use of Him. He does not understand the concept of God, but he does not gives up concept of God. Therefore, finally, we can conclude the understanding of Book of Kohelet concerning God. He proposes a spirituality of asceticism. The spirituality of Kohelet that he proposes through his book is asceticism. What is this asceticism? Abandoning oneself completely to God. Abandoning oneself completely to God. He says we have to abandon ourselves into God's hands fully. So finally he says, God is in heaven, you are in earth, so let yours be few and learn to walk the dark path of God. Learn to walk the dark path of God. This is the conclusion concerning the concept of God in Kohelet. And we leave that idea. We come back to the last point. Enjoy the finer things in life. Here we will conclude and we will go to library once. I will just show you some of the commentaries and some of the